Yesterday. Yeah, tons of fun.
Yeah. Where did you go in Spain?
Mallorca. Beautiful. I've never been to that island. It's just gorgeous. Really wild.
Did you see Rafa? Rafa, the tennis player?
Fun. No, we didn't even go to that town. He has a whole museum and whole tennis complex there, but we didn't do it. I want to.
Here we go. Okay. I'm going to call the September 19th, 2023 meeting of the White Bear Lake Conservation District Board to order. We have a quorum. Thank you. We're called to order. And the agenda, would anybody like to make any adjustments to tonight's agenda? And I will start. I'd like to move the Lake Utilization Committee report up ahead of new business, if that's okay.
Sure.
Anybody else? Okay, would anybody like to make a motion to approve tonight's agenda?
Make a motion to approve the agenda as amended.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay, that passes. Approval of the August board meeting minutes. Does anybody have any adjustments that they'd like to make to last month's meeting minutes? Would anybody like to make a motion to approve those minutes?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay, that passes. Okay, public comments. We are reserved 15 minutes at our meetings for people to discuss items that aren't on the agenda. Is there anybody here that would like to take advantage of that 15 minutes? Okay. Well, we can't start the public hearing until 7:05. So we'll move on to new business. White Bear Lake Conservation District official emails, status and protocol. So Sherry, this came up at the last meeting. We'd like to encourage people to use their White Bear Lake Conservation District email that each of us has. And it came up at the last meeting, question about protocol around that email. So Sherry has put together a kind of a starting point, I would say, that's in our packet that, here. That is a WBLCD board email guidelines draft. And any discussion, and here's the way I'd like this to go. I'd like us to talk about this a little bit tonight, a little bit, however much we want, but a little bit, and then we'll, fleshed out a little bit, and then bring it back as kind of an official policy kind of thing. So does anybody have anything that they liked or disliked about what's on the paper at the moment? And I can start. So one item, the second bullet point, directors will set up their WBLCD email account so that that email will be forwarded to their personal accounts. That's the way I like it personally, because then I don't have to check a bunch of emails. But I don't know that that's a necessity to do that, as long as people are willing to go in and check their White Bear Lake Conservation District email regularly. So that's just a thought, really. But I don't know that we need to make that a requirement. Yeah. Scott, what do you think?
It's not really necessary the way I have my iPhone set up, because I have multiple email accounts, and then there's all inboxes. They're all merged together, on the top line. So for me, it doesn't make a difference.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so there are some technology workarounds that are available. So that's good. Thank you for that. Any other discussion on that item?
Is there any guidelines on retention of emails? Like you want us to hold on to an email for 90 days, 60 days, years, forever?
Yeah, good.
I don't know if we need it for historical purposes or what, but
What's the, yeah, Alan, can you chime in on that? Darren?
Yeah, Chair and Board, simply put, it would be government data, and so it'd be covered by the Data Practices Act. And if we're adopting a program or something of a schedule, then there should be at least a permissive retention schedule for email. So generally speaking, it can be as little as 30 days. It could be as long as 6 months. But you should adopt a policy that allows you to basically let them go.
So is that what you just, so typically that would be 30 days to 6 months, somewhere in there?
Yeah, it's not uncommon. I mean, if it's an active issue, obviously you're going to hang on to stuff a little bit longer. But say, for instance, just if something goes into your delete bin, you would just set it on auto delete at a certain point.
Okay.
30 days is not uncommon. So we can certainly look around and see if you need a range, but I know that that's what it is in some other cities. And that allows you to obviously not just accumulate useless data, or at least data that doesn't really matter anymore. Mm-hmm. So, but without a schedule, technically you have to hang on to it forever.
Yep. Okay, so that's good. So thanks for raising that point, Darren. We'll do something, or we can get that incorporated. Sherry?
So we do have a retention schedule that we follow. I haven't looked at the emails, but I will do that.
Yeah, if we have one for email, then just let us know what that is, because I don't think we've explored the universal email deal for a while.
Yep. Okay. So I'll raise another item. On the last bullet point, if you think that the office should be aware of the information in the email, and your response, copy the administrator on the email. And I think it's a good idea to copy the administrator. Sorry, Sherry. I think it's a good idea to copy the administrator on all of our correspondence as a board member or as a committee member, just so that, and the reason I do it is because then I know that it's like in the public, record well, like that. So I would suggest that. And it also keeps Sherry in the loop, which is valuable. Okay, any other discussion on this email stuff at the moment?
And I would echo that just about copying Sherry, just because for a lot of reasons it's nice to know that you're not conducting serial meetings betwixt yourselves. And so if something goes out and you can plainly see from the email chain that it's just, say, Brian to Lindy with a copy to Sherry, that's the circle, right? So that you can actually prove, hey, we weren't passing this around to ourselves. So it's just helpful because the metadata would save us from being accused of that.
Okay. Any other input on these at the moment?
when are these going live?
So some people have not got back to me. I've been sending test emails to people who've had these email addresses before, and I do need to see that they can access their account, so some people have not done that. Some newer ones, some of you have given me information. I'm going to look at my sheet, but I still need some information from some of you. As soon as I get all of that, I'm creating a web page that will have that contact information or put it on there. So I can't say until I get everybody ready to go.
So if you haven't responded to Sherry yet, please do that.
And go ahead.
Out of curiosity, how much spam does WBLCD@msn.com receive?
I have two different folders. I have a focus and an other, so most of it goes to the other. So I get very little. I do get some, but very little actually.
Okay.
I checked my WBLCD account. I logged into it, and there wasn't any, really, which was kind of surprising.
Typically, I was just curious, once we post these, there's crawlers that's going to grab them all and sell them. So I wasn't sure if there was a tactic that we could use to hide them or make them tougher to get at from a crawler perspective.
If there is, let me know.
We'll see once our inbox fills with offers. That I have inheritance from my Nigerian prince uncle.
Is that something? Is that something where we could have you need to click on this person to get that information? Would that help alleviate some of that or not? I don't know how all that
There's a
works.
The I'm not a robot button.
CAPTCHA, yeah. There's
yeah,
a bunch
maybe.
of ways you can do it, but I don't know of our website technology
Is that something you could?
capabilities.
What do you want me to ask specifically? Because
It's more or less, is there easy, again, this may not be a problem, but just knowing that once an email gets posted, there's crawlers out there that look for @ and add you to the list. So for the sake of all of us, to avoid maybe an influx of spam, week one, just what capabilities whoever runs our website, Wirebuilt, whoever it is, can they do? And there's a number of tactics out there. Click a button to view. Click this button, send a message to Brian, Meredith, right?
Where it doesn't actually give you the.
There's the option where there isn't even an email address shown, but you can still send a message, right?
So specifically, what is the question I'm asking? There's crawlers out there, but what, I need a specific
Yeah.
question. I don't know. What
I
I'm
can fill
asking.
you in afterwards. Sorry,
Thank
I
you.
don't want to. Let's talk later.
Yeah. Okay, that's good. Thanks for raising that, Darren. Okay, any other discussion on the email guidelines at the moment?
I just want to say, so change those things and we're good to go that we just talked about?
Oh, sorry. What do we all think? I guess we have two options. One is we can say, hey, everybody, give this a real solid look before the last meeting. Let Sherry know, or for the next meeting, let Sherry know your input. Or if we're comfortable that, yeah, this is a good starting point, let's get these firmed up and throw them over, start using them. I'm fine with that, too. Does anybody have any strong feelings one way or the other? Okay, yeah, just make those changes and we'll call them good. We can always adjust later if we need to, once we start using them. Okay, good for that item? Okay, well, it's after 7:05, so I'd like to, can you remind me the mechanics of this, Alan? Do we just close this meeting for the moment and go to the public hearing, or?
Well, your public hearing is within this meeting, so you don't close the general meeting. It's just a public hearing.
Okay.
And typically what you'll do is you'll just set it up so that everyone knows what the subject matter is and just have an introduction to the subject and then open the public hearing.
Okay.
And depending on who wants to speak, give everyone audience and ask if anyone else wants to speak. And once the silence is observed, you close the public hearing.
Okay.
As the chair.
Okay, thank you for that, Alan. And so this is this public hearing is an opportunity for us to hear from the public regarding a variance request that's been made by Docks of White Bear Lake. That variance request is, generally speaking, for Docks of White Bear Lake to be allowed to exceed the 300 feet from the ordinary high water level for their ADUA, and they're claiming a hardship that because of the lake level decline over the summer, that it's difficult for them to operate some of their available slips. So I will open the public hearing right now, and we will invite anybody from the public that would like to come up to comment on this topic.
Usually just ask a couple more times, so three's a charm.
Anybody from the public would like to come up and make a comment on this or at this public hearing, and then I'm going to ask another time. Anybody in the public want to come up and comment at our public hearing? Gosh, we should have staged some people. Okay, well then,
Gavel is closed.
well, there we go. Public hearing's closed.
You've done your duty.
Okay.
And now typically you hand it over to LUC or whoever's going to comment next.
Yeah, so we're done with the public hearing, and the LUC report is the next item on the agenda, and so we'll go to the LUC report.
Yeah, and the first thing was, so today we did not have a quorum in the LUC, so we'll get the mic back. We did not have a quorum within the LUC, so there's a few things that we'd like to bring up to the board for discussion in a vote. We did review the variance for Docks of White Bear, Docks of White Bear, and going out there, measuring some of their docks. Some of their docks are getting into compliance. They're actually doing some work out there. I think 2 out of the 5 or 2.5 out of the 5 are getting there. But without having some layouts probably changed with like some of the ideas we had with Whitaker, it's almost like a game of Tesla where they're having a hard time moving some of their boats to get some of the structures changed to come into compliance. So what they're asking along with the depth and the, what's going on with just the lake keep going down, they're asking to keep their docks where they're at. And there's a survey in there that shows how far they will be out on each dock. The only thing I would note is dock 2 and 3, they've been brought in, so those have been brought in, but the rest of them have not, where they're looking for a variance to keep their docks where they're at for the rest of the year, and then we can hopefully focus on what is going to be that dock layout for next year where we can get them in compliance and get them to their slip counts and everything else that we've wanted to do for the past year.
Okay. It'd be nice if Docks of White Bear would have provided a representative, I think, because I think there are some questions. One question that I have is, they have open slips, it seems. And so I wonder why they couldn't utilize some of those open slips that look like they're in good water, and then bring their docks in now. That's one question I have.
I just think with the pure number of boats, even to try to move those too far docks, there's hundreds of boats there where moving those is going to be pretty difficult, I think. So
yeah, just getting coordinated with
like one of the ones he always brings up is Adam Thielen. He can't get a hold of Adam Thielen because he's like playing football, so he keeps bringing that one up. But I get it. It's like, trying to get, whatever it is, it's over 100 probably boats on those 2 docks, getting them straightened out to pull them in. It's going to be tough. But there's a month left in the season. I think if we were able to let them get through the season, fine. But the big focus is going to be getting that permit for next year dialed in, along with what we want to change on the Whitaker ADUA, along with getting the city of White Bear okay with what's going to happen at Lions Park. That's going to be the focus here for the next couple weeks to get that dialed in.
I'm unclear on what length of dock they're asking for.
They're asking for all of them. So, if you look in that,
What are the lengths of each of them that we are approving?
If you look at that curved line there, that's at the top of it. That's 300 feet. And I think what Mike McGoldrick did, he just measured. If you look at the bubble to the far left, it's like 45 feet out.
Yeah, I think that what they're trying to note here is the excess length.
That's the excess length on each one of those docks.
So this one, I guess, would be around 345.9.
Yep.
Yeah.
If you didn't print that out, the bubble is dark. You can't see.
Thank you for letting me know that. I did not know that.
You can't see the number in there, so there's actually no number on there. That's why I'm confused.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
So if you only looked at it electronically, for me anyway, there's no.
It wasn't
number.
on your printed one?
I don't get a printed copy.
It
of the
wasn't
board.
on your you can't see it on the electronic thing?
I can't. No.
Okay.
Oh.
If that happens next time, let me know.
Okay. I just thought I didn't even know there's even a number in there.
Yep.
Yeah.
So
So you
here
try
are the
it.
numbers.
All right. Thank you.
So they labeled what went past the 300 feet from the ordinary high water
So
mark.
3.
First one is 345.9. Next one is 344.7. Next one is 340. Next one is 340.2. Next one is 348. Next one is 342.3. Next one is 341.5. And then the last one is 337.2.
Docks too, I was out there and measured 2 and 3, and they're
Hey, and Chris, how are the numbering on those? Does it
so
start at the
when they measure it, when they count them, it's 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Okay, so
where
one is towards Lions
one's the
Park.
closest to Lions Park. So if you ever hear from them on what dock is what, that's how they're numbering them.
Another question. So some of these are longer than the DNR has allowed them to go on the DNR permit. Yeah.
Yeah, I think everybody has to get their DNR. Like, that would be one thing we're trying to get this year too, is like, everybody's kind of used the same DNR permit, and we'd like the city last year got theirs in sync, right? I think there was one that followed up. So that would be some of this permitting process that we'd want to get some of these DNR permits cleaned up. We try not to have that hold us up on anything, but we'd want to get that cleaned up to match if we could. Problem is, it's hard to get a hold of the DNR, and it takes weeks and weeks and weeks to get them to do it.
Yeah, and I think that, I don't think this is inaccurate. I think that Docks White Bear have basically cheated all season. I think, the DNR permit allows them, one, they operated without a permit for most of the season. The second is the DNR permit allows them 260 slips. And in July, they had 270 slips, I think, by our count. Not boats, but slips. And Alan, why do you think that's not true?
I don't think there were 270 out there. I could count them again, but
The slips.
Slips, yeah. But I think the problem that we had, like, we go back to the permits that we did last year, and this is our fault, and we got to improve on it this coming year, is we did not label all the permitted slips, like where we were going to put boats. So that was one of the confusions I even had when I was counting the boats, because I didn't know what slip was what. And like Keith brought up, he had a bigger boat where somebody needed to move, and that's why that slip's always open there. So I think that's where it's going to come into this next year, is like if we can get all the commercial owners to partner with the LUC, really define what are going to be the slips that have permitted boats, then we'll be able to have something that we can count against and reference when we're doing our counts. But this year, without us, this was one of our faults, is like without documenting the permitted slip, you can make some assumptions of what's what, but some of them weren't. Like you look at, like Tally's had one, they didn't use that slip all, between the two, July and August, we didn't see any change, like with some of these slips that weren't used. Same with the City of White Bear. City of White Bear had some gaps, but they were consistently had the gaps in the same spot. What we hope is, like, we can define what those slips are and then try to make it an easy process for the owners to say, hey, we got to move this boat. They can contact, the administrative or LUC, and we can make sure we can stay in sync with the same documentation to make sure we can define what are those slips if they do move, right?
Yeah, and I think that's a valuable point Chris makes, because, this July 23rd, even giving them the benefit of the doubt, it looks like there's at least 270 slips, not boats. But some slips, they have a boat on one side but not a boat on the other side of the dock. So is that a slip on the other side or not? You'd think it is, but I think it goes to Chris's point, is we have to somehow get our hands around, our arms around this, what is a slip that they're planning to use and what isn't.
for rental purposes. Yeah.
For which one?
For the purposes of the permit.
Yeah.
Because all I can do is just show you boats.
Yeah, that's right.
And you never know when someone's lower unit's out and all of a sudden there's an empty slip for 2 months out of the summer.
Yep. And I
generate income.
think there's some good discussions where we have two owners here tonight where I think they're going to be on board with it. We've talked to Brian. I'm sure he's going to do the same thing where we're going to count on that. And we have not got anything from the VFW, but we would follow. And that one's a little more simpler because it's like 25 boats, right? We can probably figure that one out quick.
Disclosure, Brian, to your point, Brian did call me yesterday and asked if there was anything else needed for the variance because he was going to be out of town, out of state. And I said, as far as I know, no. And I asked Sherry, and she confirmed. So he did plan on being here, but didn't plan on being gone. So I'm not going to say I'm sorry for him because that's not what he told me to say. He just asked if there was anything else needed for the variance.
Understood. Thanks for that, Al. Mark?
Just want to note that the variance is requested on the basis of low water. And I think it's important for us to describe kind of our rationale for granting the variance, should we do that? Because I think it'll become precedent for next year's low water.
Yep. Mike, what is sorry to jump ahead, but what is the water level today?
922.
922. Well.
Sure seems lower than that.
Okay, well, my view is that, we've asked them to to pull in the number of slips to within the 300 foot, and they've made some efforts that way, I guess, but they haven't been successful on the majority of their docks for whatever reason. But I'm concerned about the precedent that this would set when water level is at 922 or above, and it's end of the season. And, probably as a practical matter, Docks of White Bear is going to continue to just, they're not going to do what we ask them to do anyway this year. That's an assumption. So I'm going to make a motion to not approve the variance.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to not approve the variance. Any discussion on that?
I have one question.
Chris?
What do we do for some of these commercial owners? Because we know 922, it's going to go below. You can feel it. You can see it. You see it on the lake. What are we, like, you go down to the commercial bay, like, it's like 3 feet of water at the end of Docks of White Bear, Tallies, half of the city of White Bear. It's 3 feet. Like, you go in more. Halfway, it's maybe 2. But like, these guys are running through dirt, in a foot of water. So, one, I'm curious what is the board or any other discussion what we think we're going to do as this, because right now, even if it's 922, everybody's in trouble. Everybody's floating boats off their lifts. They're like, it's a problem right now. And I think we're going to see it with residents too. Like, they're going to need to go out in some of these parts of the lake where you're going to see these long docks going out quite a ways to make it work.
And, I think that's a good point, Chris. And I guess what I would say about that is we need to have some sort of, it seems like it'd be good if we could develop some sort of uniform view of how to address this low water for all the marinas in Commercial Bay. As opposed to approving a variance for just one marina when the others haven't asked for one, and the others seem to be operating okay. But during this off season, I think that's something that the LUC and the board should work towards. Is how will we react when the water level gets down below 922 next year if it does? Where it may start out higher in April when, which is the cutoff from the DNR permit, but it's going to go down over the summer likely, and it's possible that we won't get enough precipitation to offset that. And so we're going to have to come up with some approach. But
because like even the discussion Lindy and I were having on public slips for the city of White Bear, like, I do think there should be a variance for them. If they could come up with a creative way to put those out and help some of these businesses and push it out, do we do some of these variances where it makes sense? Because I think us going to 300 feet was like, it locked us in, but now there's always a consequence to every decision you make, right? We're kind of seeing some of them where it's, I look at the ordinary high water mark and I don't know where that exactly is in the Commercial Bay, but where I see stakes, and maybe it's one of what you're saying, it was, an offset. But I do think we have to go down there with the owners and really look at it, because like, they've all lost, like, it's there close to 30 feet. It's gone, right? It's dirt all the way into the water. So we got to come up with something, because it's like, I think we should be able to get, some of these boat owners who are, renting these slips, we should give them an option, I think, if they're in there, right? And if things dry up, I think we should really think through it. And I would hate to have, I don't know if we did it for all of them, I don't know how we would do that, or do we just give them guidance and say, put your variance in and ask for it? That's, I guess, what.
Yeah. Mike?
So the application for variance requested it based on low water. But the docks were too long before the lake was down. I thought it was based on the extended docks over 300 and the fact that he would have to destruct those and send those people home, and it was an unfair burden on those people because the low water happened after.
I think he did.
And what good is a low water variance now when the docks are all in place? It doesn't make sense. I need to figure that out.
The only thing I would say is like, it looked like the count slips or the boat counts dropped from July to August. Like, he came in compliance on the 250 that was approved. So there's something changed there because there was more boats in July from what we saw. And those were actually in slips, not in some of the transient spots. But, you know, once again, it's like, who knows what's in there, right?
But in the picture, they're close to shore. It just doesn't, asking for, because of low water, when the fact is his docks were too long to start the season when there was more water.
Yeah, but you go down there, those first slips, they're not even usable. Like, they really aren't. Like, you go look at it, it's dirt.
Is that the operators? Is that on their fault for renting those? You know,
No,
if we take a harder stance.
My thing is, I think there was water there when he had it.
Right.
Right. And that, you know, fine, we never even had a permit because we went back and forth on it. It is what it is. The boats were out there, and now we're dealing with the fallout, right?
Yeah, one
I guess,
thing.
what's our role? You know, the operator can choose to rent, in this case, 230 slips to have 30 slips of margin if the water level drops, and he can provide a good experience for his renters. He can go all the way to the limit and roll the dice. If the water level drops, now he's in a quandary, right? Homeowners are in a quandary. We're all in a quandary. We got to adjust. Are we the group to bail them out? And I'm not saying we aren't. I'm just curious what everyone else thinks. Because if we're going to bend for this, are we going to bend for every weather event that comes through? Whether, I don't know, tornadoes or something like that would cause a hardship?
The answer, in my opinion, is yes. We're going to have to take on each one of those as they come in, for sure.
Yeah, I do think that these are businesses down there, and the business owners have some responsibilities for the decisions they make. And I don't know that it's us that needs to come in and bail them out. I mean, if you're confident the water level is going to go down over the season, you know, maybe you shouldn't count on having so many renters in your marina. You know, that's a business decision that somebody makes. And you know, to Mike's point, you know, in the aerial photo from middle of August, towards the end of August, there are boats, you know, right up against the shore on most of these docks, you know, where it'd be the shallowest. So you wonder if how much that's really affecting things.
Yeah, then FYI, that would have been about a month ago now,
Yeah.
just when the photos were taken. And just as a matter of housekeeping, since you are looking at a variance, I'd remind the board that he's doing what we asked him to do, which was come back and get a variance, because you can't. I think the explanation was given, correct me if I'm wrong, Chris, but it was going to be functionally impossible to move all of them back to 300, is what I heard. So we said, come back and get a variance, or at least ask for it, justify it. So he is doing what was asked of him. And if you're going to deny and that's successful, you need to put the denial in writing, and it has to go out to them on letterhead with the rationale for it. So if they decide to appeal that, they've got the bases that the board decides to deny. So that's an important part of this, is factual findings to support the denial. Conversely, if that motion fails and someone makes a motion to grant the variance, similarly, got to make factual findings.
And I made the motion, and I guess the basis of my motion is that water level still at 922. That's an elevation that the DNR has set in their permit as a reasonable elevation to operate at above, when it's at that or above. And so I don't see the need for a variance.
Yeah, but I think the reality is when you go look at it, it's like these guys are going to be in trouble. It's coming. Like, the water's gone down 6 inches, and it seems like in the past 2 weeks. It's like, it's going. So I don't care either way. We're going to have problems coming. I can guarantee it for these commercial bay owners, right?
Yeah, and I think that's true. I think that it's going to get complex down there. It's just a question of can we come up with a way to handle all the marinas instead of handling them piecemeal. And this year we only have one marina that's requesting a variance, and so that makes me think that the other marina owners seem to be getting through the year this year without needing a variance request. Mike?
Well, the lake goes down in the fall always. How much it goes down, how much it stays down, we don't know. We won't know. until spring. You know, you'll see it changing. That lake reader that gives me the lake level actually goes all winter. How it works in the winter, I don't know, but you'll be able to see if the lake does start to come up. But I guess the variance, I thought,
Chris.
as I mentioned, was for the extra dock length. Now it's changed to low water, like we're getting set up for next year. So I don't know if we can change what the variance is for. We can't probably change what he requested, but his docks are still out of whack, and that's what I thought. The lengths are too long, and that's what I thought the variance was supposed to be for. But
Scott?
Yeah, I mean, we told them that they were out of compliance and that they could submit a variance, but they submitted a variance based on water level, not on being out of compliance. I mean, we're here in the middle of September, late September. We're within a month of the business shutting down anyway. So it's a practical matter. It doesn't matter whether we approve or reject the variance. It's not going to change the facts on the ground. But what we want, okay, we're requiring them to submit a new permit application by October 15th. We won't have time to discuss that in October, so we'll have to discuss it in November based on our precedent or everything that's happened with them up to now. There'll be something we don't like about it. We don't meet in December, and once again, we're back in January, fighting, this battle. And then at the same time, we've got this whole issue of lake level, which is separate from being in compliance or not. But this lake has varied by 8 feet over history. It was up and down, taller, by more than any of us is tall. And we do need to have some systematic approach to dealing with cyclical lake levels. But it doesn't really have anything to do with what we asked them to submit a variance about being out of compliance. And it doesn't put us in any kind of position. 30 days from now, we're expecting a permit application for next year from all the marinas, right? And, then immediately they're going to say, well, this won't work because the lake level is too low. So I don't know. I'm very uncomfortable that we're just not going to be in the same mess that we've always been with the marinas next year. They submit applications in October. We don't like them in November, and we start arguing about it in January, February, March, and then before we know it, they've got boats out.
Yeah. And Chris, I'll get to you in just a minute. Scott, I'd just like to mention that one thing that we're trying to do this year differently than we have in the past is the LUC is going to be meeting with the marina owners, or members of the LUC are going to be meeting with the marina owners to talk through their application before they submit, so sometime over the next couple of weeks. And hopefully that'll take care of some of that, and hopefully. But, it's something we're trying to do to make the process work better. And Chris, did you have something else?
And just to be clear, this is a variance only for this year. We're coming in. We're not saying this variance goes beyond this year. It's for this year, so another month. On top of it, like what you just stated, we will be working with these commercial bay owners to get their permit here in October. We've learned from our mistakes. We're going to do our best to get those in front of all of us so we can take a look at those. I'm hoping, right?
Yeah.
Because what we did last year, we've had on both sides. We've had all our mistakes, and we're going to try to improve on those.
Mike?
The motion on the floor is to not allow the variance. And if that passes, then that passes. If the motion was to allow the variance, and that passes, nothing changes.
Yep.
And it's a variance for the wrong reason, in my estimation.
But also, it's a variance for a water level that, the DNR views anyway as being adequate,
Yeah.
Rightly or wrongly. Mark. Okay, Meredith.
I think if we're going to consider low water variances, we should consider them for all the marinas equally and probably at the same time.
Yeah, echoing what Mike said, if the variance had a different rationale for practical challenges, I think that would be a different proposal. But the rationale being for low water, which is not actually lower than 922, doesn't make sense to me either.
Chris?
I don't think you can use the ordinary high water mark as the only metric that you can go off of, because as you go through that bay, that water varies by dock, right? So you look at some of these docks, they're in 2 feet, right? They're in 3 feet. It's like that's changed over this year. It's down, it's down over a foot, right? So it's like 922. I don't think is the only metric you get. You got to go down there and see it. It's a mess, and it's going to get worse. And that's for all of them.
I agree. For when it comes time to grant variances, we're going to need some sort of
But that's where your
rationale.
Chris, go ahead.
Perhaps it's at least some amount of navigable water at the most shallow slip, and then X amount of feet from that, or something.
Chris?
So we know we need to do something, right? We've talked about okay, we shouldn't wait till April. What do we want to do? We should do something now, I would think, right? Like if we're going to try to get some of these commercial bay owners and get them if we have to give them levers, the only lever that we know about right now is filling out a variance. And that's about it. But if we want to have that for all of them, is there guidance we want to give them? Because it seems like we come up with these things and we don't give guidance on a lot of this stuff.
Well, I think that every case is kind of specific and individual, and so and then also it goes to the point of the water level where I think that when a variance request is made, we have to look at what variance they're requesting, and so I don't know that we can kind of do a blanket guidance as far as the variance process goes. But I do think it's something that not tonight, but something during the winter that we need to talk about as a board and come up with a strategy that we're going to incorporate next year if the water levels do fall below 922 or whatever elevation we think is appropriate. Mike?
No, I agree. We need to, in the coming months, devise a formula down less, 922, X number of feet out, 921 and a half, 921, and it just could be a formula. Going to take some work, but I think it could be done. And then, when we judge it, is it April?
Yeah.
In April, then we'll know. You'll know what the levels are in the coming months, but in April, we may have to, prior to April, have a formula of what docks are allowed to do. And some docks, I don't think the city docks have to go out. You've got plenty of water. If the lake was at this level, everything's fine. Seems to be. But, it would allow a formula for everybody that could go out. And Chris could probably be good at that because he's really good at numbers.
Chris?
So this is where I think if we wait, we're going to have bigger problems, right? Like if we're saying if we're bringing in individual variances and people aren't doing that, the variances I imagine would be called out in October for these folks. So how are we, should the advice be if some of these commercial bay owners have hardships and they feel they should put it in the October permit too, or what should it be?
Well, I think the October permit application has to assume that the water level is going to be above 922, and they should adjust their application appropriately. Just as an example, Docks White Bear, if they have slips that are not functional at 922, then maybe they shouldn't rent those slips or plan to rent those slips. At least have a contingency plan for that. But I don't know the answer to each individual variance that could be requested. But I think it is, a marina owner can request a variance really at any time that they want. But I agree with Mike that, sometime over this winter we need to come up with a strategy for how we're going to address this in the future.
Sure.
Meredith?
Could we save time at our April meeting if it looks like the water's going to be under 922 to hear variances from anyone in Commercial Bay that wants one? Or is that too late, like April 16th?
I think it is.
It's too late.
We're all getting ready to put our docks in.
Because March ice comes off sometimes, and they're ready to go.
And it may be that we'll have an indication of where the water level is going to wind up in February, March. Yeah, something. But, it's a difficult situation, and we're just going to have to kind of play it by ear a little bit, I think, to see what actually happens. Chris?
Could I suggest something then? Could we say, fine, we're at 922, and if we can measure it through the winter, like by January,
Yes.
if we see a consistent drop by January,
Yes.
and it's like 921 or something, if it's just continuing to drop, I think we should give these guys a chance to say, okay, we're looking for a variance for X, Y, and Z, even if it's extending ramps, whatever it's going to be to keep what they have.
Well, and I don't think there's any limit on when folks can come in with a variance. I mean,
Right.
these folks are going to be looking at that as well, these marina operators. And, if it's January and they have an idea that water level is going to be really low because that's, whatever rationale they use, they can come in and request a variance. Meredith?
Would it be easier to just say what month we would consider the variances in so we could look at them all together? Just an idea.
Yeah, it could. And maybe that's something that we can think about and bring up at the October meeting. Because they're I would assume they're not going to come in with a variance in October.
Can I speak?
Yeah.
Okay. You want me to come up? Or?
Yeah, please.
Okay. Just what's running through my head right now, first of all, Keith Daynard, Tallis Dockside in the Commercial Bay. What's running through my head right now is I'm going to submit a variance on October 15th for it because we are at 922 today. And what's going to come, I'm going to probably look at two different scenarios that says, okay, if we do come up, this is where I'd put in at. If it does not change or we go below, why would I do that? So we can actually evaluate today what we think we're going to do in hedge. I don't want to put another 30 feet out there. That's money, but if I can't rent a slip, I'm going to put some more slips out or length out to get into depth of water. One other point I do want to kind of bring up, we talk about the city having plenty of water. It does vary as we go all the way around into, and it is a dock by dock basis. It is that. But we also have to remember, kind of to put us back on task. I think we kind of are missing what this discussion tonight is about. This is actually about a variance for somebody, not a variance for all of us. So sorry, there was my soapbox. But I think I'm going to submit for a variance in October 15th.
Basically, Keith, what you're going to do is you're going to submit an option A and option B. Option A if the water level is fine. Option B if it
might be B and C. Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. That's exactly a good synopsis. Yes.
All right. Thanks for that. You guys have anything you want to add about that? And then we'll get back to the motion. Sorry, everybody.
Paul Kelpie, City White Bear Lake. Just a couple comments from the stream gauging. During the winter months, it freezes up and you can't accurately judge the lake level. So as soon as ice goes on, it's pretty much a null thing. So you have to either, like Mr. Daynard said, you either have to make the decision when you're applying in October or wait till the ice comes off to do a variance request. And like Mr. Daynard said, it does vary even from the city docks, from VFW over towards Tallies. Each one of our docks is different water depths, so we would have to look at each one of those 5 slips or 5 fingers that we have differently. So,
and would the city be open to also providing an option A, normal water levels, and an option B for lower water levels, or would you wait? Here's what I'm thinking about, is if all the marina owners were to give us their normal situation, let's call that option A, and an alternative if the water levels are down, then we can look at all those, because what happens is, once the water level starts going down, everybody starts going out farther, then we start, I think, converging on each other a little bit in the Marina Bay or in the commercial bay there. And so it'd be nice, I think, for us to look at that. Now, it doesn't mean that we would act on any of those variances or that we would approve any of them at the time, but at least we would see what the marina owners had in mind. And if it did, in fact, turn into a situation in April where it was really low, then we would be maybe better prepared to offer them some early season guidance as to whether we expect them to install option A or option B. Is that too complicated?
We're just trying.
Paul, what do you think?
I would say, just from the city standpoint, infrastructure becomes an issue. We don't have extra, sections of dock that we can now put in to lengthen it. I mean, if, say, in April we made the decision that the water level is low, it might not be till this time that we can get dock sections made to even put them in. So that you're kind of at the end of the season and you're hedging your bet for the following year. So it's kind of a, make that decision. Do you rent all 160 of the slips, or do we back off and have that contingency plan? I mean, where do we go with it? So,
or does the city just purchase additional sections with the betting that the water level is going to be?
Yeah, we could hedge a bet and have those extra sections on hand, taking into account, like you said, there are, the bay is converging, so we have more leeway, say in the center 3 docks that we have versus the edge ones where we might interfere with either VFW or tallies. So we would have to play that by ear just to make sure. Likewise with them, so that we're not all converging on each other and still have access.
Okay. All right. Thanks for that. Alan?
Yeah, sorry to belabor any points,
right.
but a couple of observations. If you haven't been monitoring the lake level case that the DNR is involved with, a lot of those solutions seem to be coming in the form of sort of tiered responses to the lake level. And so at this level, and remember, the protected elevation as set by a court is actually a lot higher than what the OHW is. So something to keep in mind, that even a judge has said you have to start doing things differently at a level quite a bit higher than 922. But that said, I think navigable water is really the issue with these guys. It's not really the OHW. Because, it has nothing to do with the bottom. And that's what we've heard from all 3 of these guys. So that might be a different measure that we should use going forward, and maybe have some self-triggering events. I do not like the idea as a city attorney of prospective variances. In other words, hey, here's my application plus my variance request if this happens, because there's absolutely no basis for you to actually, in fact, issue a variance on what might happen 9 months later. So I don't recommend that at all. So I don't mind the idea of A, B, and C options depending on the water level trigger. And the other problem there is look at when the DNR actually measures it, right? It's going to be at the absolute highest it possibly can be. What's that, April 15th, 16th, whatever their official date is?
April.
And so with this year, at least the prediction of a super El Nino, which means warmer winter, less snow, we're already sort of behind the 8 ball at 922 in September. So a couple of things to kick around, and again, we're now kind of getting the horses out of the barn in terms of your motion. So this is regarding denial of a variance based on water level. And I think if the applicant would hear, he'd probably say it's all tied to water level, right? Even if he wasn't very articulate in the application, but that's what I'm guessing would be the response. So anyway, I don't want to influence your decision making, but.
Okay. All right. Well, any more discussion on the motion? Diane?
If the motion is, or the variance is denied tonight, what does that mean to Docks White Bear? What does that mean to the board? What would be our next step?
Well,
what would we do
well,
if we deny it?
Well, I think that there's, let's say there's a month left in the season. Again, and I don't want to, well, I wonder if anything would change. The board at some point we'll need to make a decision of whether to enforce our ordinances or not. But I'm not sure the board would make that decision until the October meeting, and by that point, it's moot. It's moot. Al?
And to really answer the question, assuming that it isn't appealed, if it is in fact denied, a letter would go out saying, pull your docks in 30 days or whatever is commercially reasonable, which will be done because, of course, the season's over. So that's, as a practical effect, that's what we would do, because he now doesn't have the variance to have them out beyond 300.
Okay.
Any more discussion on the motion? Okay, I'm going to call the vote. All those in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign.
Nay.
Okay, so record one opposed. All right, thanks everybody for that. Okay, so we're still on the LUC report, and
this one is for the city of the docks for the city and the VFW. They're asking for the fireboat to be put. It's in your packet. You can see one. I think the fireboat historically has been in a VFW slip, and it wants to be put on to the far dock of the city, which would go in the ADUA of the VFW, but the city has worked with the VFW, and they're all in agreement that.
Can I just clarify that a moment?
Sure.
I think the fireboat's always been in the city's marina.
Or in a slip?
The new, that's an old fireboat. A new fireboat is in the works, and that does not work well to go in the slips. And then also the fact that it's an emergency vehicle. And so if there's an emergency, having them need to navigate through the marina may not be the best idea. So again, per the drawing, the request is to locate those two boats in the VFW's ADUA.
No, the veterans boat for the boat rides, has not ever counted towards their boat slips. So they're asking also for the fireboat not to be counted towards their slips, towards the city's permit slips. So those two, they're asking to have those not counted. Which one is already not being counted. We've been giving them the veterans boat already. Now, it just brings in, the only thing is, we do for the rest of the sheriff boats around the lake that are I think that the yacht club, we do make them pay for it in a slip, and it counts towards their numbers.
And maybe the VFW has one as well.
Washington County has the sheriff at the yacht club, and they don't count that.
They don't count it?
I don't think so.
I thought they did.
It's a very complicated application, because they're commercial and non-commercial.
And if they don't count it, I don't care.
I think that it's possible that the only emergency vehicle boat that's counted in a slip is the one that's at the VFW. That's possible that's the case. Okay, so Chris, still your item, sorry.
I'll just make a motion to approve it, not counting the new fireboat for the city of White Bear's permitted slips. If there's any complaints from the VFW dock owners where the boats are placed, we would move those down and get them out of the way if anything comes up.
I'll second that motion. So motion and a second and I think this is the motion, to allow those boats to be located in the VFW's ADUA and to not charge us a slip fee, or not to count that against the city's slips. And so that's the motion in the second. So Mark?
And clarifying question, this is for the 2023 boating season?
2024.
We're trying to be prepared for our application.
So the motion would basically give the city some guidance as to how to prepare their application that they submitted in October.
So what happens if there's a complaint?
I'm hoping we could just move them and address it, right?
So will the boat be able to remain
Here's what
parked?
I would suggest, we're hoping that we put the boats in the right spots where it doesn't cause, this may not be the diagram, right? Think about your permit, think about what's right, put it in the right spot where we don't get another headache or another call saying, hey, somebody's backing it, or somebody's new to the VFW that's going to come in and complain against it.
One difference I think that it will be beneficial here is that people won't double tie or triple tie to that dock there, the outside of the city's north dock there. And one other point is that the VFW has written a letter that basically accepts this approach. That's in our packet as well. Okay, any other questions or discussion about the motion? Alan?
Are we worried at all about the number exceeding what the DNR has authorized?
Yes.
You're saying it's a ghost boat by taking this vote, but the DNR probably wouldn't regard it that way because they'd see it as another watercraft in the marina.
Yeah, so I think that's incumbent upon the city to get that worked out with the DNR, and if they can't get that worked out before next season, then in order for them to stay within their DNR permit, they would have to give up one of their slips in their marina.
Just for clarification.
Thank you for that. Any further discussion? Okay.
I would say this is kind of related to, it was part of the discussion at the LUC was, and I don't think this was included in the motion, but how are we going to handle other public safety boats? Are they going to be charged, or because this would be the only boat that is not charged? Then we're charging for the sheriff's boats on the rest of the lake.
Yeah, so I think it's not clear. Okay, first off, I think that's a separate issue, but I think it's a good one. We're not clear that the Washington County boat is being charged for. And I think that it would be reasonable for us when the VFW brings in their application to consider treating them the same way we're treating this emergency boat. I think that's my opinion, but that's something that'll come up when we review the VFW's application.
Because LUC members are going to be meeting with the marina owners, they can talk to them about that so they have their application correct when they put that in.
Yeah. Okay, any further discussion on the motion? Lindy?
It may be a good idea when you're talking with them, because we will have to amend our DNR permit, so will the VFW and the yacht club or something. Does the DNR even want to communicate that with the others during this process?
That they may need to adjust their DNR permit? And does the VFW need to adjust their DNR permit based on this motion?
If you will exclude the water patrol boat, then yes. Which I believe they would be in favor of.
So you're saying?
So they would be one above, just like I would be one or two above.
Yep. They're in the process of renewing their application anyway, so that would be good for the LUC to address with the VFW. Okay, so Meredith?
I have a question. Yeah. So these two boats are sitting in the ADUA of the VFW, so they're counted towards the VFW's count, or they're counted towards the city of White Bear's count because they're attached to that dock, even though they're in the... Okay.
Yeah, so they're counted towards the city. The VFW is just being kind and letting them use the ADUA to park the boats.
But the VFW has Ramsey County Water Patrol.
Yeah, right, Ramsey County.
And I guess I shared this with the VFW. We would, if it's an issue, we would be fine with the Water Patrol mooring on our dock, if that's acceptable to them.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so any further discussion on the motion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay, that passes. Anything else from you, Chris?
That's it.
All right, thank you. Okay. So now we're on to back to new business. We discussed the emails, request for variance application form, change in application and submission timing. So the variance application form has been adjusted to. It's in our packet, but basically it's been adjusted to let people know that they need to get their variance in by the first of the month in order to have it reviewed at that month's meeting. That gives time for us to get notice out to the neighboring properties And so that's the only change. That's correct, eh? The only change? All right. And what do we have to approve this, make a motion to approve this change?
If you want to take a motion just because it's a change on your official form, that's fine.
Yeah, I'll make a motion to approve this change. We have a motion and a second to approve. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Okay, that passes.
Do we get a second?
Yeah.
Didn't hear it.
Unfinished business, VFW EAW status. So the VFW submitted some additional information based on our previous request for additional information, but they just submitted it yesterday afternoon. And so we will send that additional information around to all the board members, and the board members can look at that and offer input to Sherry if they see anything that they think still looks deficient, and then we will review all that information and make a decision on whether we think it's complete or not at our October meeting. So that's all there is to that one, Sherry.
I will send that out tomorrow, and if you could get it back to me by October 7th, I think that's a Friday. That'd be great.
And it might be the 6th is the Friday.
Yeah, the 6th is the Friday.
Yes. Oh, 7th is something else, yes.
Something else. That's our special day.
It is.
Okay, and Commercial Bay boat count status, the photos that are in your packet. We've had some discussion around those just in general at this meeting already. It gets down to, I think, on the docks of White Bear Lake, what's a slip, what's not a slip that they're using, because some slips are empty, but they have more slips than we've allowed them with our permit that we gave them. I don't know. What do we want to do with this item? Chris?
I think we focus on.
Sorry.
I think we focus on defining what that process is to define what those slips are going to be for next year in the permit, and if we can get those current counts accurate, and that's what we go with moving forward. I think that's the biggest focus. Now, I did send an email to Keith just to have him look at some of his numbers, because when we counted boats, he was the only one over by like 2. So whether it was something there or whatever, I'm just asking for his input to get, one, we want to work with these guys to understand what's what, and then get them to truly help us define what are the things that we're going to count each time, whatever the month is. And if there's boats in different slips, then we can talk to them about that. But I think it's focusing on defining in the permit what are going to be the slips that are going to be used for permitted boats or rented boats.
Anybody else have any input they want to offer on those aerial photos? Okay, we're moving on then.
No, Meredith.
Sorry, I have a question.
Yeah.
Did we get any counts from Ramsey, from the patrol?
Not that I know of.
Do we have any boat counts from the patrol?
Not that I've been given. So
I think that
no
would come
contact.
through. So I think that's where, I think if we can define a process within the permit, then it's easier for us to manage it without, even if we handed it to somebody, let's say we hypothetically got somebody, at least we can give them, say, here, count and make sure there's boats in these slips. If they're not, let us know.
Good? Okay, we're moving on.
Sorry.
No,
I was just saying, I imagine we have no intention to enforce the ordinance of you were over this many slips and this year you'll be deducted ×2 in the following year, right?
That's my assumption.
Yeah. Okay. So I figured.
Yeah. Okay, we're on to reports, action items, and executive committee. So the executive committee met, and we talked about some administrator items. And Sherry, I don't know if you're going to hit on these during your announcements, but I'm going to hit on them here. So carpet installation will occur October 9th. And Sherry could use some help Saturday morning, October 7th, around 9 a.m., just moving some things from here to there, downstairs within that office area. So please see if, check your calendar, see if you're available to come in and help out a little bit.
What was that due again?
It's Saturday, October 7th at 9 a.m. Okay, other things we talked about, the process for marina operators to request a variance, and we just approved the change to that form that they should notify by the first of the month. We talked about email protocols. We've talked about that elsewhere in this meeting. Commercial Bay permits for 2024 operating season. We talked about that a bit, and a suggestion came out of the executive committee for the LUC to meet with the marina owners prior to them submitting their application, so that hopefully the submitted application will be more in line with what we want. Buoy monitoring, we talked a little bit about that, just because we have these shallow water buoys out there, and Alan's going to request that the conservation officer, the DNR conservation officer, kind of pay attention to those for us a little bit in case one goes wandering away. And then I would also ask that if the board members are out and about, become familiar with where those are, and if you see anything that's out of line, let Sherry know. Coordination with DNR, we're still trying to get some response from the DNR, so we'll keep working towards that. We talked about the EAW for the VFW a little bit. Sherry brought up the personal watercraft rental operations, and we talked about that a little bit. And Sherry, are you going to say anything about that during your announcements?
I think so,
yes. Okay, so then I'm going to let you do that.
Okay.
And then we talked about the St. Germain Bay sign. We've been trying to get this sign in the works, and we keep kind of running into roadblocks, but we're still pushing forward. Any questions on any of that? Chris?
What are the questions to the DNR, or what are we waiting for?
So what we'd like is to have some input on the permits that they write for Commercial Bay. We would like to try to limit, text in the DNR permit that specifically identifies dock lengths, dock configurations, and we would like that to be left to the board so that we have more flexibility, just like this year when we had this Whitaker Street thing. If the permit would have been written differently, we would have had more flexibility to take that action without worrying about violating the DNR permit. So that's what we're after. Chris? And hey, here's sorry.
Have we thought through, just giving like you said, bare minimum, but more, all we need for these guys from the DNR is an environmental study, and the rest is up to us? Instead of this back and forth trying to get things in sync, and we play this, we're in charge, but we want the permit, and we go in this circle. Have we ever thought, do we just say, DNR, all we want from you is this environmentally sound for the number of boats, how the docks are configured? It just seems like they don't want to be part of that at all.
Yeah, agreed. And so we're trying to work them out of that and give us more authority in that
And they
regard.
just won't respond, or what?
At the moment.
Got it.
Okay, any other questions about that? So, okay, moving on. Lake Quality Committee, Mike?
The lake level tonight is 922.00. Everybody got that?
Come on, you guys got a poll.
That's why it went down. Lake temperature is 66 degrees. It was 71 last year at this time, so a little bit colder. Phragmites, the survey was done. We have about the same amount of square footage to treat, but last year we had 24 sites, and this year we only have 12. So what we're treating is the location last year in these 12 sites had what they call outgrowth, and that's where it grew around the area that was treated. So it's travels by roots, so they're going to treat the out zone, and I think, that's going to be a much better treatment. But in the majority of the sites that we originally started with, Phragmites has been eradicated. So that's good. So we're tracking it down. So we went from 24 sites to 12 sites this year, about the same amount of square footage to treat, but that's in the outgrowth areas. That's it.
Oh, sorry, you go ahead, Meredith.
Do you know when the treatment will be yet?
I do not know when the treatment will be. I've emailed Lake Management a couple of times, but we had, the survey came out originally, the EpiMaps, I don't know if you know what those are, that's what they put them on, it's all a bunch of numbers and goobly garp, and I don't understand it at all. We're wrong. So we had to go back and rechange, and I got a bid from Lake Management based on that, and the bid was wrong. Now, as of the final findings, they went back and revised everything. So I haven't got that bid yet, but it will be under what we're approved for, so I'll sign it as soon as I get it, and then we'll get it treated. The thing about Phragmites is that it's not a rush to treat type of thing. We've treated it in October even, and some people have treated it even later. But you want to treat it because it's in the fall, because when it's drawing into its roots nutrients to survive the winter is when you want to have the application on it, so it draws that application into the roots and kills it. So it's not a rush to run out and do it tomorrow. But I will email you as soon as I know.
Yeah, and you can, if you would let Sherry know as well, then she can let us all know.
Yes.
Because I think it'd be interesting for us to know. Okay, any questions for Mike? Meredith?
I have one more question. Steve McComas usually comes to our October meeting. Is he coming next month?
Steve McComas will come. Yeah, I should call him. He's coming in October. He's coming as late as November. But thank you. Thank you. I know he'll remember, but I like to get ahead of the game.
Okay. Any additional questions for Mike? Okay, thank you, Mike. We're on to Lake Education Committee. Scott?
Yeah, this year we're getting information out through the press publications Laker, and Sherry distributed a report of how and where that's being distributed. The copies went out to all the Lakeshore residents by mail, as well as some of our dock associations. And it was also distributed at these locations that you see on the end here in little new publication racks that they have. So I'm pretty pleased with this and how it's gotten out. It's a lot more than we could have done ourselves. So, so far 3 issues have been put out. A 4th winter issue. They want content by November 30th. I came up with some ideas, and we'll be discussing it on our committee, but I think maybe since it's the winter edition, we can talk about winter events that we permit. We can talk about the lake cleanup day. There are actually a new state law in effect in August that ice fishing houses can't leave their junk on the lake, which apparently wasn't illegal before, but it's now illegal. So there's a number of things we can talk about winter on the lake, is where I'm thinking of going with that, but we'll discuss it. So that's where we are with that. Social media update, Meredith?
Okay, I'm going to put some posts up this month. The first one will be next week. There's the Rice Creek Watershed District is speaking at the Wildwood Library on the 26th at 6 p.m. about the White Bear Lake water quality and just an update on the lake. So if any board members are interested, it'll be on our social media, all the details. But it's the 26th at 6 o'clock at the Mahtomedi Library. I'm going to post about the water temperature and level, about the Phragmites treatment if it happens before the next meeting. And then I'm also going to post that if Steve McComas is coming to our October meeting, that he will be here in case the public wants to attend and listen to what he has to say about the lake as well. Does anyone have any questions?
Okay, thank you, Scott and Meredith. Treasury report, Mike?
Treasurer's report, you all have it in front of you, or if there's any questions on any items before I make a motion? No? Okay. I would like to make a motion that we approve debit card purchase number 13, 14, and 15, and checks number 4894 through 4900. And I need a second.
We have a motion and a second to approve those expenditures. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That passes. Thank you, Mike. Board council report, Alan?
Chair and board, thank you. No citations from Ramsey County that I've been made aware of, and I called our conservation officer and said, give me a call if anything happened, and he didn't call. So I thought I'd frame it in the negative so I didn't have to worry about waiting for the call. So pretty slow month. I mean, anyone who was out on the lake, it was an odd last 30 days to be sure. So anyway, I'd stand for questions. Yeah, Chris?
Did you hear anything about that? I heard there was a death in Birchwood.
Yeah, it was a drowning.
Was it? Yeah. What any details?
Accident, as far as anyone knows. Yeah.
It wasn't a boat. It was like somebody from shore, or what was the deal?
Someone from shore. Yeah. I don't have any details, but that's what I know. Along the shore and was in there, and yeah.
In White Bear Lake.
Accidental drowning is what I think it's been listed as. Yeah, in White Bear, right off the shore in Birchwood.
Okay. That's unfortunate. Okay, any other questions for Alan? Okay, thank you, Alan. Announcements, Sherry?
Yes, I have quite a few. I have quite a few, so I'll try to get through them here. I had emailed you today with some information on Minnesota government data practices. You also, I believe, have a hard copy in front of you. And so just to let you know, as a government entity, the White Bear Lake Conservation District is subject to the responsibilities of this act, which is outlined in Minnesota Statutes Chapter 13. In the opening paragraph of the handout, the Act states that it presumes all government data is public. However, there are exceptions, as mentioned on the back of the sheet of the handout, which I'd like to point out. Under Statute 13.44, it states that the identities of individuals who register complaints with the government entities concerning violations of state laws or local ordinances concerning the use of real property are classified as confidential data, which is data not made available to the public. And I'm bringing this to your attention because as a complainant's name was accidentally mentioned in the August board meeting, and I've let that person know, I now am taking steps to redact it from our meeting video. So going forward, I just want to be sure that you are aware of the responsibility to hold those names confidential. In future board trainings, which I am looking into, we'll cover this and other information pertinent to board members, staff, and government entities. Does anybody have any questions about that? If you do, you can ask Alan or myself. Concerning marine rental operations, which Brian had brought up. As some of you know, there have been complaints both with the city and our office regarding safe operations of businesses that are renting jet skis and pontoons. As it turns out, none of them have applied for a permit from the White Bear Lake Conservation District, and though I've sent letters, direct messaged, or called these entities, no one is responding. And while both the city of White Bear Lake and Ramsey County do not allow commercial businesses to be based out of their parks, such as Matoska and the Ramsey County Beach, marine rental operations will need to get a transient merchant license from both of those entities as long as they are not basing their business in city and county parks. They could be having a boat or a jet ski on a trailer on a side road. That's what is happening actually. Therefore, as a point of education, I talked to the executive committee, and to keep the lake more safe and to bring these operations into compliance, I'm going to send applications if I have addresses for these people, and send them a letter stating that we require they either have a commercial application permit, which is a commercial sales. We don't have a specific watercraft rental application that isn't related to like marinas. They would just have to fill that out. Or we also have, if they're just doing jet skis, we have a personal watercraft rental application. So I'm going to let them know about that. And then also they'll have to let us know that they have approval from the city and the county and that they are not operating out of parks. So the city and the county and our office are trying to keep each other informed about this. So I don't know if anybody has any questions about that. Okay.
What should we do if we see somebody doing something out of the parks? Just let you know?
Let me know, yes, and then I will contact the city if you personally, and you could also contact both the city and myself, but I can start that chain. I want to let you know that I was fortunate enough to hire an intern to help with office organization. His name is Peter Merrill. He's a student at the University of Minnesota who started to work last Thursday. He also came in today, and he's doing a great job. Unfortunately for me, and good for him, he was applying for positions, full-time positions, and he has one, and so he's going to start on Monday. So I have him for one more day, yay! But he has at least help with one big project, so I'm happy about that. So just to let you know, if you know of any maybe university student or somebody who would like to help out, I really am still looking for that. I mean, still things go on and things are taken care of, but it was nice to have. So dovetailing into that, as Brian had brought up, there's a carpet installation. I was really hoping this person would help me get things together. So now I'm back to square one again. So I truly do need, I can pack things up, but I just need help moving. What do they say? Many hands make light work. So if you could let me know, please email. You can let me know tonight if you're available, or please email me as soon as possible, just so I know what kind of help I have. I might have to ask other people if I don't have enough help to do that. We'll be moving furniture, equipment, and other things over to the other side. The city has given me space to put things. In fact, today they came out and cleaned an area for me to put stuff there. And Alan has offered to come by on Friday, right, to take the office. There are some file cabinets that need to go and other stuff, so we'll work that out. What else? Oh, and that's it. Next board meeting will be on Tuesday, October 17th. That's it.
Thank you, Sherry. Any questions for Sherry? Okay, thank you. And we're down to the last item, adjournment. Would anybody like to make a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn. Second.
We have a motion and a second to adjourn. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Opposed, same sign. Okay, we're adjourned. Thank you, everybody.